The issue of cap and trade continues to be a big issue for many businesses here in the state and across the nation. In a time when business continues to struggle with the effects of a painful recession, please tell us your position on cap and trade and its effect on business and the economy.
I disagree with the federal cap and trade bill, and I would vote against it if it were presented to me in Congress. And here's why. I'll support, and I will gladly support, as I did in Connecticut, a bill to reduce carbon emissions, as long as it doesn't come with an enormous price tag to the people of Connecticut or the people of this country. President Obama had his Treasury Department study the impact of the federal cap and trade bill. And they concluded in their study, which was released publicly, that it would cost American taxpayers over $200 billion, which would amount to approximately a 15% tax increase for each and every American. A few days ago, I was meeting with the small manufacturers of Connecticut, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, if there was one thing you wanted me to know, if I had the great good fortune of being your member of Congress, what would it be? And they said, please, don't do anything more than has already been done to jack up the price of electricity. We are such a highly energy and electric intensive industry that the notion of passing a legislation that everybody agrees would send, and these are the words of President Obama, electric rates, quote, necessarily skyrocketing, would be a profound economic disaster. That's why the National Association of Manufacturers actually did a state-by-state analysis of the economic impact of the federal cap and trade bill. And what they concluded in Connecticut is that on the low side, the passage of federal cap and trade could result in the loss of approximately 17,000 jobs. And on the high side, about 25,000 jobs in Connecticut. That would be an enormous economic disaster, not to mention doing it at any point in time, let alone in the middle of one of the worst recessions we've had since the 1930s. I would much rather use tax incentives and other types of positive inducements to encourage companies to reduce their CO2 emissions through positive economic incentives that create a positive economic result if they do it, instead of penalizing the entire American public and American manufacturing with what everybody, including supporters of the bill, in some cases, in this case specifically the President, say would amount to one of the largest tax increases on businesses and American families in the history of this country.
2 minutes, Mr. Murphy.
The state regional greenhouse gas initiative, the state's version of the cap and trade legislation, was vehemently opposed by many business groups because they claimed that it was going to raise electric rates dramatically. And as Senator Calgary has rightly pointed out in defense of his vote in favor of that bill, that has not occurred, that the DPUC has stated on the record that rates in this state have not increased as a result of that cap and trade system. Now, there are some critical differences between the two pieces of the legislation. One of them is that the regional greenhouse gas initiative that Connecticut undertook actually requires that all of the money collected through the auction of pollution permits goes into energy efficiency programs. The federal version of the cap and trade bill, which obviously has not become law, actually directs the majority of the money derived from those credits directly back to consumers, so as to defray any potential rate increase from the required investment in renewable energy that happens under both the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative and the Federal Greenhouse Gas Initiative. Now, the EPA and the Nonpartisan Energy Information Administration have estimated that the current version of the federal bill could end up increasing electric rates by about $5 to $6 a month. Now, if that occurs, I believe that we need to see that as an investment in our military security, just like we see the contributions that we make to war fighters, war-fighting planes or tanks. And I think that we need to see it as an investment in jobs as well. Every other country in the industrialized world is making this investment. And though there may be some small cost that doesn't go into effect for another several years, I think it's a smart investment in all.
I guess your time's over.
the building. Please locate the nearest exit and calmly evacuate. An emergency has been reported in the building. Please locate the nearest exit and calmly evacuate. An emergency has been reported in the building. Please locate the nearest exit and calmly evacuate. An emergency has been reported in the building. Please locate the nearest exit and calmly evacuate. An emergency has been reported in the building. Please locate the nearest exit and calmly evacuate. An emergency has been reported in the building. Please locate the nearest exit and calmly evacuate. An emergency has been reported in the building.
Yeah, guaranteed.
Please locate the nearest exit and calmly evacuate. An emergency has been reported in the building.
Saved by the bell.
Kathy's parents. So, and whether they come up, they live down here, and whether they come up on it. They're coming up a lot.
Now, is this the first debate you've ever been at with a seventh inning stretch?
Yes, it is. But it did happen on a high note or a low note that the question was posed to Mr. Murphy about cap and trade. And as he was finishing up, the alarms went off.